It's happened at long last. Love him or hate him, the premier theorist on YouTube has finally wandered into the Murder Drones fandom and delivered a well-produced and solid theory regarding the show. I know a lot of people have already been dropping into my comments for weeks now saying that they would love for MatPat to get in on the theorizing action here in our corner of the internet. Ask and ye shall receive.
King of the Britons. Oh, don't grovel. One thing I can't stand, it's people groveling.
Biscuits. I'm sorry.
And don't apologize. Every time I try to talk to someone, it's sorry this and forgive me that and I'm not worthy. What are you doing now?
However, I do have some thoughts regarding MatPat's theory, and while he delivered up some wonderful observations and a great theory regarding a new character, I want to point out some things that he might have gotten wrong, and as a writer offer up a completely different interpretation on Uzi's hero journey within Murder Drones. So buckle up for another crazy ride!
I was the pilot? That's awesome! I crashed and ruined everything. Spaceship pilot. Origin story.
Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And if you haven't seen MatPat's theory yet, I highly encourage any Murder Drones fan to check it out. And if you're just a casual viewer, maybe his video might convince you to join us here. But to get us all on the same page, whether you've watched his video or not, much of MatPat's theory revolves around the coming of a specific character named S, and what role they might play in Uzi's journey with just 2 episodes left to go in Murder Drone Season 1. MatPat even said that based on everything that he had seen in the show's meta-commentary, that he is certain that he knows how this season of Murder Drones will end, with Uzi learning from S that N killed her mom, and this will send Uzi into this angst overload, and she will give herself absolutely and totally over to the entity known as Absolute Solver. But then with N's help, she will overcome the possession and defeat Absolute Solver, and then in the second season, she will go with her friends off-world and save both humanity and drone kind from Absolute Solver. Overall, like I said, it's a nice and fairly solid theory, and I will start off with what I think MatPat got right before scrutinizing what I think he got wrong. First of all, I love that Matt was able to get more details out of the shredded, oil-besodden papers that Uzi found buried in the floorboards back in episode 4. Finding out that there's other identities for the drones greatly supports the possibility of a drone named S. The presences of Alice and Bo in the Cabin Fever labs, along with their numerous victims, does suggest that many worker drones from the J.C. Jensen programs could still be deeper in the labs, with all kinds of unknown knowledge. And it would absolutely fall in line with Liam's way of taking jokes and offhanded comments and making them legit plot points.
She was always all, build doors against the coming sky demons. The singularity awakens. Look at this cool ass I can draw.
His theory also supports that the Cabin Fever labs experimented on Uzi and Doll's mothers, which passed along the Absolute Solver strain to their children. The drones participating in these experiments connected with Absolute Solver and received visions of the dangers coming to Copper-9. Matt also crunched the numbers and showed that there is a 0.007% chance for any shutdown drone to become a zombie drone with a corrupted, twisted personality and a way of thinking should they come back, which is what we saw happen with Sin and resulted in Absolute Solver. And it's good to have these numbers because that does inform us as to why we don't have tons of drones running around with the Absolute Solver strain. But it also confirms one of my earlier suspicions, that all the drones within the series could potentially have Absolute Solver in them. I also have to applaud Matt for laying out the general timeline in a concise way, which is something that still has numerous fans scratching their heads. Though I do think that Matt places too much time between the Gala massacre and the events that we see from episode 1. And with that observation, I think that makes this as good a time as any to switch gears and talk about where I think MatPat went wrong with his theory. If there is an upcoming drone named S, I highly doubt that they were made by Tessa to confront Uzi with the truth of what really happened to her mother. I say this because Tessa comes across as still a very young woman. Also, why would she have sent S to Copper 9 ahead of taking her clone of J and escaping to the planet to confront Absolute Solver? Things aren't quite meshing up right here. How could she have made S really long ago and sent him with pertinent knowledge that he wouldn't even really have to a planet that hadn't yet been affected? It's one of the reasons why I don't think that the timeline is quite matching up in Matt's favor, because that is a pretty large leap in both logic and time, even if Tessa is skilled with the drones. Instead, if S is indeed an upcoming character within the series, they will likely be from the original experiments, and that is very important to the hero's journey that Matt also misunderstands, but I'll get to that part shortly. One thing, though, that I know that Matt absolutely got wrong is his statement that N, V, and J were the only murder drones sent to Copper 9. The pile of corpses in front of the labs are clearly made up of various drones. I said in my review and analysis of episode 6 that Sin hid her machinations in plain sight by having infected disassembly drones working on a planet that J.C. Jensen had already tried to infiltrate. It's a smart move for a godlike entity. Furthermore, the chatty and mocking, arrogant, but brilliant Alice talks about all kinds of things to both V and Uzi. She even brings up Nori pretty extensively once Uzi brings that a little bit up. And because she's so chatty about how she's able to know all these different kinds of things, and all these things she's already done, it seems very weird that she would not bring up that she had seen V and N before in some sort of incarnation. Something like, darn tootin', these guys just keep coming back, and I keep having to put them in the ground, rip out their hearts, and stuff them in the oven. Something like that. I would definitely see Alice saying something like that, which she doesn't. And again, all of the drones that we see piled up in large heaps of corpses look very different from N, V, and J. Plus, when a disassembly drone is killed, they're evaluated by the company to see if they're worth cloning. J was proven effective enough to be cloned by the J.C. Jensen company after she had been destroyed, which would mean that there should then be an accompanying V with Tessa if she had already been butchered trying to infiltrate the Cabin Fever labs. And the same thing would probably also go for N if you would just keep getting sent back again and again and again. All of this is to say that N, V, and J have not been the only disassembly drones sent to Copper 9, but they were the ones sent specifically by Sin, which is what Tessa says. Sent specifically to create the spire of corpses, and then to get into the Cabin Fever labs, bringing Absolute Solver to whatever is waiting down there. Now, I'm making a big deal about this seemingly small mistake that MatPat made, because it ties directly into what I think is MatPat's biggest misinterpretation of what is happening in the show. He was on the right path looking at Uzi's presentation back in episode 1, because it is a clue for what is coming. But MatPat took it at face value and did not consider what kind of story Murder Drones is. Specifically, Lovecraftian.
Does it at least have pictures?
It doesn't. I checked. really didn't have to see this.
Lovecraft stories do not follow the hero's journey in any kind of positive way. It's partly why the creepy man's horror stories still haunt people to this day. Cursed knowledge, ancient gods, and inconceivable horrors undermine all the heroic and sometimes questionable actions of the heroes. No story concludes without great sacrifice or loss. And if you think V's death and the loss of Uzi's arm is sacrifice and loss enough, we still have 2 episodes to go. This means that whatever is coming next is not going to be as clean cut as Uzi falling into deep angsty despair, going through atonement and redemption before exiting the abyss with the powers necessary to defeat Absolute Solver and have her happy ending, or to take the fight against Absolute Solver to other worlds in Season 2. We don't even yet know if we're actually getting a Season 2. Furthermore, supporting my Lovecraftian understanding of murder drones is not just all the horror elements that we've seen thus far, but the nature of Absolute Solver itself. This is where we really need to look at things. MatPat again takes it at face value that the program is just part of a corrupted AI. Again, this very low 0.007% chance that a shutdown drone will come back as a zombie with a god complex and unexplained godly powers. Yeah, sure, that's going to happen. No, it doesn't. Because when Sin reboots as a zombie drone, we see flashing across her screen a conversation. One that asks Sin if she doesn't want to be alone. Does she want a friend? Sin says yes, and Absolute Solver is invited in, taking hold of her. And where does Sin happen to be? At the bottom of a hill of corpses. What did Sin send V, N, and J to do? Build a spire of corpses. Right in line with all the occult stuff and rituals we see decorating Tessa's room, Sin's basement with all the other corpses and experiments she performed, and the belongings of those who escaped from the Cabin Fever labs, Absolute Solver is a malevolent being that operates according to twisted cosmic rules, and it grows in power, mutates, and gestates within corrupted AI, allowing it to proliferate and take control of entire worlds and thereby destroy them. Tessa wasn't lying about what Absolute Solver does, but its origins are far more cosmic and sinister than even she knows, and that's a revelation that a potential character named S could provide. So that's what MatPat is ultimately missing here, that this is a Lovecraftian story that could really end with a tragedy for either Uzi or N. Even if they defeat Absolute Solver in this season, it will come at a great cost. Surviving a Lovecraftian story doesn't mean that the heroes necessarily win or are even okay afterwards. And that's something that I really want to get deeper into with another video, exploring potential endings for Murder Drone Season 1. And I will have that out before the next episode airs, believe you me, just in time for my theories to age like milk or like fine wine. But there's one last thing to address before closing out this response video to MatPat. The hero's journey that he points out is very important to Liam Vickers, but not for a reason that is immediately clear. Before Liam became a recognizable YouTuber, he was a Hollywood storyboard artist. His work accompanied the story pitches from numerous fellow Hollywood workers. Liam has rubbed shoulders with plenty of writers who for the past decade have been fascinated with formulating a story that could usurp the mono myth, or the hero's journey, and replace it with an all-new model. Now, there is already a vast misconception of storytelling right there. The idea of the monomyth is false because there are so many different ways to tell a story. It's not about following a certain formula that goes back to ancient times. No, it's all about how you tell your story, with all its different elements and tropes and characters. However, Hollywood writers have actively been pushing stories that reject timeless qualities and strongly written characters in exchange for flimsy analogies, pretentious self-insert characters, overbearing preaching on issues without even taking the time to study any said topic, and general nonsense that ensures that pet points in the plot happen even if they make no sense within the context of the rest of the narrative. Liam has had to suffer through all of that, pitch after unsuccessful story pitch. But he has also been inundated in this quest to subvert the so-called monomyth, and he has put his finger on the best formula: horror.
Evil demons, wretched monsters, haunted houses, graveyards.
Specifically speaking, Lovecraftian horror, something which Liam has already shown a lot of love for with his stories of Cliffside and Internecine Cube. This is the perfect approach by which he can play around with established tropes and subvert them. This is what horror is really all about, other than making people really freak out. Because while still delivering wonderfully complex and lovable characters and building an engaging world and a gripping story, you can play around with expectations and do wild and crazy things. And since this is a Lovecraftian story, you cannot trust that everything will turn out happy and hunky-dory, as the hero's journey would suggest. Now, the question of how Murder Drones will end is a tempting one to entertain. Like I said earlier, I will be making a video before the next episode drops that will explore what I see as likely conclusions based on what Murder Drones has so far shown us and what kind of endings Liam might be crafting. If you want to see that when it comes out, make sure that you've subscribed and click the bell notification. So, there you have it. Overall, this is my breakdown, my analysis, and my response to MatPat's theory. I think he's onto something with this S character, and he's very smart to draw attention to the hero's journey portrayed in episode 1. And I have to say that I am glad that someone else is also calling attention to Uzi's theme like I have.
Now is so not the time! I messed up! In the same way I'm about to fix it! Move, Dad!
I screwed up.
In the same way you're about to fix it?
However, I do think that MatPat is underplaying the Lovecraftian themes, which is putting him on a different trajectory for how the show could end. And it does oversimplify Absolute Solver, when the entity is still by all counts and evidence a complex cosmic being. But that is admittedly more up to interpretation than anything else. The one thing that Matt did 100% get wrong was that N, V, and J were the only disassembly drones sent to Copper 9. So when you stack it all up, it is a pretty solid theory from MatPat's. And that's actually what we need more of in the Murder Drones community. Coming up with theories, sharing them, discussing them, and enjoying the camaraderie of being in this awesome fandom, watching this amazing show. So don't go ripping into film theory just because of what I've said here, but instead I want to hear your insights, your observations, and your own theories as we wait for episode 7 to air. Sound off in the comments. And also, while we wait, if you're looking for some great stories, then please check out my newest book, The Monarch Mercenaries. Seriously, this book right here is the cure to boredom. And if you love Murder Drones, Monarch Mercenaries also has great wacky characters, a sprawling adventure, dark mysteries, crazy humor, and a lot of heart. So please check it out. It would help us out a ton. But in any case, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.